Hello, people. Uh, this is day 10 at the cabin. Finished this Shackleton book. It's a really good book. The book covers everything from them leaving England and getting frozen in the ice. Their ship, the Endurance, gets crushed in the ice. They have to camp on the ice for like 6 months. They finally make it to Elephant Island. Shackleton and 5 other men go from Elephant Island to South Georgia, and it's a pretty epic boat trip that they take, 800 miles. And there they get help, and they send another ship back. Shackleton is actually on the ship, and they rescue the guys that they left on Elephant Island. It's a pretty incredible story. Shackleton is quite the hero. He does pretty much the same thing that Bartlett does. Shackleton is in the Antarctic. Bartlett is in the Arctic. Bartlett does almost the same thing. You know, he leaves his men on Wrangel Island. He goes to Siberia, gets help, and goes back and rescues them. I don't know why Bartlett doesn't get more attention. Years ago I watched a PBS special about this, and I was hooked. And then a couple of years ago, my son bought me the book that's titled Endurance, and I read that book in one day. And that's also a great book. That probably goes into a little bit more detail on some other things. It goes into the background of Shackleton's crew. The one guy that gets frostbitten really badly ends up having to have his toes amputated while he's on Elephant Island. That guy was actually a stowaway. And they don't come out and say it, but it sounds to me like that guy was in love with another guy that was leaving. I mean, why the hell would you stow away? Anyways, none of that's in here. That's all in the book Endurance. Okay, and something that I didn't realize that is the expedition leaves like 3-4 days before England declares war on Germany for World War I. They leave this in 1914. And Shackleton, he starts to cancel the whole thing, and then the Admiralty, tells him, no, go ahead, and he even gets a note from Churchill. But I got this bottom paragraph I'm going to read, because Shackleton apparently was sensitive about people. People were critical about these Arctic and Antarctic expeditions. They thought it was a waste of money, and people were dying. So this is what he says. He says, so, according to these definite instructions, the Endurance sailed to Plymouth. On Tuesday, the king sent for me and handed me the Union Jack to carry on the expedition. That night, at midnight, war broke out. On the following Saturday, August 8th, the Endurance sailed from Plymouth, obeying the direct orders of the Admiralty. Somebody must have been critical of them leaving and not serving in the war. I make particular reference to this phase of the expedition, as I am aware that there was a certain amount of criticism of the expedition having left the country, and regarding this I wish further to add that the preparation of the expedition had been proceeding for over a year, and large sums of money had been spent. We offered to give the expedition up without even consulting the donors of this money, but few thought that the war would last through these 5 years and involve the whole world. The expedition was not going on a peaceful cruise to the South Sea Islands, but to a most dangerous, difficult, and strenuous work that has nearly always involved a certain percentage of loss of life. Finally, when the expedition did return, practically the whole of these members who had come unscathed through the dangers of the Antarctic took their places in the wider field of battle, and the percentage of casualties among the members of this expedition is high. So you can see that he's reacting to a little bit of criticism there. Okay, at this point I'm on page 80, and the ship has already been crushed, so they have to get out of there. He says nothing there's a lot of things in here that he glosses over or doesn't mention at all. The ship's carpenter has a cat, and there's also, they have a lot of dogs, to carry their shit around. Uh, there is a cat. He doesn't even mention the cat until this point. So when they go and camp on the ice, they shoot the cat and they shoot the puppies. And I'm going to say some more about that later on. And I got here something to read. This afternoon, Sally's 3 youngest pups and Sue's 2 pups, the carpenter's cat, have to be shot. We could not undertake the maintenance of weaklings under the new conditions, meaning on the ice. Macklin, Crean, and the carpenter seemed to feel the loss of their friends rather badly. Yeah, I got some more to say about that cat later on. They talk about killer whales several times in this book. Killer whales, the ice is breaking up, there's openings in the ice, and the killer whales are there, they're feeding on seals. So the killer whales have to breathe through these openings. Shackleton is convinced that the killer whales are stalking them, and he always refers to them as brutes. One of the guys gets chased on top of the ice by a leopard seal. The leopard seal actually goes into the water, swims underneath, and comes up the direction that seal knows that he's running. That seal was going to get him and kill him and eat him. It's covered a lot better in Endurance. Shackleton just breezes over that. Here I'm on page 162, and they're on Elephant Island. And I just wanted to mark this page because it shows what a leader that Shackleton was. He was really just a fantastic leader of men. One of the guys, the cook suddenly collapsed. I happened to be at the galley at that moment and saw him fall. I pulled him down the slope to his tent and pushed him into a shelter with orders to his tent mates to keep him in a sleeping bag until I allowed him to come out, or the doctors said he was fit enough. Then I took out to replace the cook one of the men who had expressed a desire to lie down and die. The task of keeping the galley fire alight was both difficult and strenuous, and it took his thoughts away from the chances of immediate dissolution. In fact, I found him a little later gravely concerned over the drying of a naturally not over-clean pair of socks, which were hung up in close proximity to our evening milk. Occupation had brought his thoughts back to the ordinary cares of life. Yeah, they were on the ice for 6 months before they got to Elephant Island. And Shackleton and 5 men leave. They leave 22 men on Elephant Island. They're talking about wildlife throughout this whole book. The guys, the 22 men that get left on the island, they have no problem getting seals and emperor penguins and other types of penguins. I wonder if that area is still the same. I wonder if it's still just chock full of wildlife like it was then. The guys stay on Elephant Island for 4.5 months. They build walls out of rocks, and they take their 2 boats and make the roof out of their 2 boats. I've got flowery prose written down here. Shackleton writes this book. He doesn't use somebody else to write it for him. He writes it himself. And every once in a while he tries to use flowery prose to describe a sunset or to describe the borealis or something, and he's not real great at it. At one point here, they mention that the 22 guys on Elephant Island have a fucking banjo. So that means they carried a banjo. They kept a banjo for 6 months on the ice. When I saw that, I said, you mean they could keep a fucking banjo, but they couldn't keep that cat alive? I like cats, in case you haven't guessed. There's a second party that I don't think they say much about in the book Endurance. There's a second party that leaves like from the other side of Antarctica, and their job is to get these huts ready and to head towards the South Pole and leave all these stashes, all these caches of food and stuff. 3 of those guys die. Their ship, it's called the Aurora, it gets frozen into the ice also. The ice breaks away and pushes north, and all of a sudden the guys that are in these huts, they look out and the fucking ship's not there anymore. There wasn't nothing that the captain of the ship could do. All he could do was just go with the ice. That ship almost got crushed in the ice, but it ends up getting back. Its rudder was broken and had leaks around the propeller shaft, and it was a bad deal for them. They kind of have different attitudes about the wildlife. It sounds like some of them just get shot and they don't even use them. But there's different attitudes about a lot of stuff because one of their dogs is named Nigger. They use a lot of words in here that I don't know what the hell they are. Nobody ever explains it. Sastrugi is one of the words. It's some kind of ice. And they bring cocaine with them. Cocaine, it's probably in their medicine chest, but the one guy gets snow blindness really bad, and he says he had to use cocaine for it. And it's just funny, because it's funny that they would use that for snow blindness. And yeah, Shackleton. This is the back of the book. It's all the scientific stuff that supposedly they got done, even though he's trying to show that the expedition was not a failure. And yeah, they got some scientific stuff done. The fucking whaling, the whaling that's going on at this time is incredible. In the year 1916, Britain owns the Falkland Islands at this time. The Falkland Islands are not too far away from where all this is going on. There's this huge area of the earth that's controlled from the Falkland Islands. And in this area, in the year 1916, they take 11,860 whales. The whole back, the back 25 pages is him trying to show that the expedition was not a failure. And he tries to show that we do this, for the good of the nation and for the good of the economy. But I really don't think that is, as much as I respect Shackleton and his abilities as a leader. He was brave to a fault. I think that these men did this for self-aggrandizement. They did it because Shackleton wanted to go all the way across Antarctica, and nobody had done that before. That's why they do it. They may say what they want. It's the same with Amundsen, and same with Perry, same with Scott, same with all these guys, Nansen. They do it because they want their names in the record book. And he certainly got his name in the record book. He got what he wanted to. That's it. Thank you.